All right, Annie Dube, what's going on?
Hey, Rich. Doing well. How are you?
Good. Yeah, thanks for joining me again. This is your second place, or your second place recap that we're doing. This time, it was the closest race that I could even have thought it could have been. Because last time we talked, I even asked you a question like, did it feel like there was two races? Like, did you feel like you were leading the second race, that Lindsay was in her own, and it was just you leading the rest? This time was not like that. Not
It
one bit at all. I was very
wasn't.
excited. How are you feeling just in like about all this is a huge, how are you feeling about all of it? Like just that finish, like, and what that kind of like, how is that sinking in for you?
Yeah, it's a lot to like think about because there's definitely a part of me that is still kind of like in disbelief and also just like making excuses. Like I'm like, oh, Lindsay wasn't like having a great obstacle day. Like there's no way I would like it, there's no way it would have been that close had she not failed stuff. Like there's like that part of me, which I think I think I'm gonna feel that way for a while until like I feel like it's happening enough that I deserve to be up there, if that makes sense. But then there's the other part of me that's like, I don't know. I think I went into that race with the intention of like sticking with her and doing my best to like, even if I blew up in the end, like trying my best to go into that race without the mentality of like, okay, Lindsay's going to be ahead and then it will be the rest of us racing. I
Hmm.
didn't want to go in with that mentality for once. So I think that really changed the game for me. And then it helped that she like had a few slip ups and it really gave me an opportunity to like surge ahead.
Because the slip up part, I mean, that's just part of the race, right? Like you
Yeah,
can, everybody can come out of the races with that excuse, like, oh, I missed XYZ. But it's like it's still the
it's
race, you
true.
know?
Like it's obstacle racing.
It's
It's
obstacle
not a
racing.
running race.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I would have
Yeah.
won the 10K if it was only 8K. It's like, well, it was
Yeah.
10K. So like, but I get what you're saying, right? Like those are two big mistakes, but you are like very skilled at getting through the obstacles, and you're rewarded for that by like getting
Right.
through it and being where you were. So the mentality going into it, it sounds like no matter what was happening, you were going to to engage in a race with
Yeah.
her, or with anyone necessarily, um, because crap, Emma went out crazy. Like she went out
Yeah.
like. Do you think you could have even gone out with her if you were like, I'm going to
Nope.
engage with this? I don't know.
No.
Could anybody have? Do you think Lindsay could have engaged with something like that?
I don't think so. To be honest, I
I don't
think the
think so
only
either.
people who could keep up with Emma would be like Nicole or Becca Hammond. She was like my first mile was like I don't know 550 something,
Oh wow.
um, with like a few overwalls, inverted wall, a water crossing. Like it was very fast for me, and she was way ahead, like almost out of sight. Like the first mile or two, I was kind of just like almost in a panic, in like a state of panic because it became the point where like I could barely see her anymore. Like she would turn a corner and I was like, okay, Emma's gone. And like I knew that there was probably a chance that she would fail some stuff. But at the same time, she's super strong. She climbs. She's been working on obstacles. So I knew that there was a good chance she would run clean. And that she would just take the race. Like none of us could hang on to her. So I was happy for her, but also like in this state of panic where I was like, okay, now I'm in this like second group, and there was kind of a pack of us for a while, and I wasn't totally sure what was going to happen, especially when we got to the first obstacle or the first real obstacle, Twister, and I jumped up there and like felt how slick and slimy it was,
Hmm.
and that also sent like a panic through me, like, okay, I am not used to this. I need to be super conservative and not mess anything up. So
So in that chase pack, though, it seemed like you were the one that was the most assertive in it. It seemed like you kind of took the reins and moved toward the front. And it wasn't like, because it can seem sometimes in these races that the pack kind of waits around for the expected person to like Lindsay would be the example, right? Like wait around for Lindsay. Like Emma's an unknown, and like no one could do anything with that anyway.
yeah.
So I wouldn't have been surprised if that race then turned into like the second race being Lindsay taking it and inserting and her leading that chase.
Mm-hmm.
Did you make a decision in the chase pack to be like, I'm going to move to the front, or did you just naturally kind of find yourself there to lead that pack?
Yeah, I mean, I made the best effort I could to be in the front. I knew, like, I kind of know how Lindsay races. I know that she never goes out too hot. I know that she's super strong come the finish. So, which was made really clear in this race. So I wasn't gonna lay off the gas just to be like, okay, let someone else take control and follow suit. That did end up happening once she caught me, but until that happened, I think I was more in the mindset of like, just chase Emma, like just go as fast as I can and try not to lose sight of her. And whoever wants to stay on my heels, okay, that's fine. We'll work together, I guess.
Yeah, and that's a smart move, right? Because I think and we knew a little bit about Emma, like you're familiar with her, obviously being on the dream team and everything. So it's like you knew that she was for real, because if she came out of nowhere, people have been like, we don't need to worry about this person at all. So it sounds like you were still racing her, even though she was still out in front, as opposed to racing the pack, which Lindsay might have been doing, right? She may have been racing the pack as opposed to racing the whole race. Right. So it seems like everybody was kind of making it through everything until about Olympus. And so you were one of like how many women made it through Olympus? Like 2 or 3?
I would say more than that. I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm not sure, because the thing about Olympus was it was like a quick penalty loop. Mm-hmm. So I'm not even totally sure who made it through and who was just like I think some people might have been super slow on it. Like I don't think Emma failed Olympus.
I don't think she did either.
But I caught her on Olympus because she was going slowly through it. So that was like a chance for me to gain ground on just like that one obstacle.
I think only you and Ashley Heller ran clean races, at least in that top 5 to like 7 range. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, and I think
most people failed like monkey bars or beater were like
they all failed
Olympus.
2. I think
maybe Olympus. But Olympus, like if you don't have to do burpees, it's easy to come back from.
If it was just that small penalty loop, because Olympus can take time. I think they showed I'm having a bad time with names today. Natalie. They showed Natalie. There was a clip of her on Instagram doing it, and it seemed like it was taking her minutes. She would almost been better off just like skipping it.
Natalie had a rough day because she failed, I want to say 2 or 3 obstacles right as she was going for the bell. Like,
oh jeez.
Like it would have been way better had she just like fallen off right away and done the penalty loop. But to like get through the obstacle like a minute or so into it, and
she was fighting so hard. And real quick, just a quick aside, I saw you were repping on Sunday their son's what is it called? Save the Sharks?
It is the Run for Sharks campaign. Runforsharks.com is the website. Yeah.
And so I'm not completely sure of all the details, but Mark and Natalie's oldest son, he's a good runner. He looks great when he runs. He looks like he's really fast.
He's already like racing and stuff. He's fast. Yeah.
And he's obsessed with marine life, sharks in particular, and did this huge fundraiser last year and ran a certain amount of miles, right? To raise a certain amount of money.
Miles for the month of August. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's doing it again. It's shark. in honor of Shark Month.
Yep.
Pretty cool. So after Olympus, you and Emma are off next to each other, and is she just gone again? Are you able to hang with her after that, or does she get back into that brush again and start just kind of
it
away at
was
it?
I mean, she made a lot of ground on me very quickly, but then again, back on that like super part of like the back part of the of that course, there were a lot of grip obstacles. So it would be like she would gain ground on me, and then we'd hit another obstacle like box or beater, and I'd catch her, and then it would be like repeat, until at one point she was doing burpees, and I just passed her. So
yeah, I think that was the beater. I think was the last time you would have seen
beater
her.
might have been, yeah.
I
So
don't think
yeah,
I've
we
ever
had
seen
like box and bender, I think, in between that.
Yes. And I don't think I've seen anybody fail an obstacle the way that she did, but she jumped up and hung there and then came back down to the stool, which I guess is a failure. I don't know.
Technically, yeah, you can't. I mean, she went on the obstacle and then off of it. So
yeah, both her feet were off the ground. Yeah, it technically is a fail, but that's just like
an innocent mistake.
and there's a million ways to make mistakes, especially in your first ever Spartan race. So that just kind of happened that way. So after that, it's you and Lindsay then, right? Because Lindsay is back in the mix with you guys together. Are you guys running together at this point? Is there anybody, or what's the racing tactic kind of feeling like?
Yeah, I was ahead of Lindsay until there's like, I think the biggest downhill of the race from what I remember was right in there somewhere. I want to say it was after beater. And it was very technical, like steep downhill. And I could hear her. I could hear her on my heels coming down that, but it was too narrow for her to pass. But then as soon as we went back into the uphill, she passed me, and I kind of hung on to her until monkey bars when she failed. Yeah.
So so you must not have caught her missing Olympus, right? Or did you know she fell off Olympus?
No, she was behind me at that point. Yeah.
So at this point, it seems like you're so engaged in the front race of Emma. Is she even in your thought? Or is it just be like, hey, here's this race right now. Let me stay present with this moment and not worry about what's going on behind me?
I assumed she was right behind me. I knew that there were like several girls right behind me. I knew Natalie was right on my heels. I knew Casey was somewhere in that mix. I figured Alex was too. And I just figured they were all together. So I wasn't looking around. It was just like, I mean, at this point, I was still worried about the obstacles. So like getting through stuff was like required full mental awareness and like concentration. Everything was slippery. And to me, it was weird. To me, Olympus actually felt easier in Asheville than it did in Utah. I'm not sure why, but everything else felt wet. And kind of just like, you had to be cautious, just not make a mistake.
Yeah, it seemed that way. Because so on monkey bars, so you're engaged in that race then, right? So Emma's basically out of your race at this point. And then Lindsay falls off monkey bars, and you guys are on the monkey bars at the same exact time, I think. And then she drops. So you must have seen her fall.
Yep.
Did you notice that as you were going through, or were you so focused on doing the monkey bars?
I knew she fell. It was right before the bell too.
Well, gotta hit the bell. That's the rules. Gotta hit the bell. When she fell, were you like, this is great, or were you like, holy crap, these monkey bars must be really hard? Like, were you worried about failing, or were you like, this is a big opportunity here?
So I think a big thing in Asheville was, like, no matter, depending on what lane you were in or what side of the obstacle you were on, the conditions were very different. I think, I do think that, I don't know, I want to say that like my grip strength really shined during this race, but I also think a lot of it was just choosing the right lane. Like, for example, on Twister, I think I chose poorly because I think I struggled more than a lot of other people on that obstacle. But on a lot of the others, I made sure, like, coming up to it, to really take a look at like which ones looked less wet. And then when I saw Lindsay, she had started monkey bars when I got there. I could see that she was being super cautious. And so I knew, okay, let me like shake out my arms and make sure I match and stuff. Don't just like try and go through this quickly like I tend to do. And I think that those extra few seconds probably paid off too.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, I always forget that a whole race goes before you guys go. So there's definitely variability in the usage of the obstacles themselves. So you probably can physically see what's going on the
like for example, sometimes the like I want to say on beater, I specifically chose one of the lanes that wasn't like on the end. Like typically the women will go to the end where the higher stools are, but I could tell that the middle looked drier, so I chose like one of the middle ones.
Right.
So yeah, you kind of have to be aware when it's these like East Coast dewy conditions. Like really look at that bar and see, like, does it look sketchy?
Just taking that time. I mean, it's going to save you. It's going to save it a lot, even if you're struggling or if you miss, for sure. So you get through it. What are you thinking at this point?
I am thinking, holy crap, I'm now in the lead. And I only took like a minute to like focus on that. And then it was just like, keep going, because I know that Lindsay's fast at burpees. I know that she can close a race like no matter what. So I was just like, keep moving and try and make up as much ground as you can. Unfortunately, like right from monkey bars, you go into the sandbag. Like there's pretty much no running in between. And I struggled a lot on the carries in Asheville. It was certainly like the lowest point of the race for me, and specifically the bucket, but the sandbag too. Like it was very, very steep and technical, not long, but just like a very sharp downhill on like really wet leaves and branches. And like, you kind of have to like catch yourself on some trees to avoid like slipping. So it didn't feel like I could move the way I wanted to move. I was kind of just like getting through it. And then same thing with the bucket. The bucket felt incredibly heavy, like heavier than what we're used to in the past few races. And then the plastic on the bucket was so slimy that even when I felt like I could be running, I felt like if I picked up the pace too much, the bucket kept falling, like slipping down my back. And I was stupid and didn't bring gloves on Saturday, which I realized are hugely useful on the carries specifically. So that was a learning experience for me. But yeah, I felt like on that carry, she probably made up a lot more ground than I would have liked.
I didn't look at the Strava segments, which I should have. Did you get a chance to look at those?
I don't think I saw what the bucket was. I looked at some of the others, but
yeah, it'd be interesting to see that. Because was that the consensus? Was it just like everyone's bucket was heavy?
I think so. I mean, I remember Hammond saying that like the women's buckets were the same as the men's. So
oh, wow, really?
And plus, I think that just them being wet also adds more weight than you would think. Like whatever's in there is also wet. So, but it definitely felt like a full bucket, not like sometimes it's like halfway or less. Like this felt like a full bucket to me.
Yeah, because that is a shame. Because if it was more running right after, it would just, the time and the distance would have been the same, but the ability to get out of sight would have been great.
That would have been huge for me mentally, like to be able to like get at least to a different section of the course, because even from the bucket carry, like you can still see the monkey bars. So it's like the same vicinity. So by the time I was making my turn around the bucket, I could see like a dozen girls doing burpees. I was like, oh
wow.
man, that is carnage. Jeez. And so like in a sense it was like it gave me a little bit more confidence to know there was a ton of people failing stuff, because up until that point, I didn't realize that everyone had been failing multiple obstacles. Like I was in my own race. So seeing that, I was pretty shocked, to be honest.
And when you put that bucket down, then were you feeling energized, or were you feeling kind of beat, or how was the running after that?
I was feeling like trash after that. It was, and unfortunately, like that's the thing about this course, was like coming off the bucket is probably some of the best running of the entire race. It's like, it's through this field that has tall grass, and it's kind of like a gradual climb, which to me would be ideal. Like that's where I would probably surge normally in a race, but I felt so beat after the bucket that I was moving way slower than I wanted to. And from that section, you go right into the big steep climb, which I do think that I worked that climb pretty well, but it's not long enough to make like a ton of ground on anyone.
And so you're just kind of doing what you can in the moment then, right? You're just kind of like handling what you physically felt like. And that was it. That's all you're really worried about.
Yeah.
So does that come back around, and is it just pushing full steam ahead, or is that basically where you're at? What's the next part of the course then?
So the next part is you get to the top of the hill and you start the final gauntlet, which is over a mile. It's, it's Atlas carry into barbed wire and rolling mud and dunk wall, and then the A-frame and vert cart. Oh, and Z-wall I skipped after dunk wall. So coming into Atlas, also before that I think was the rope climb. I missed that. But
rope climb looked good. Got the
rope
hook.
climb looked good. That was in the middle of the climb. So that was before you get to the gauntlet. So then you still have some more running to do. But yeah, coming into Atlas, it gave me a little bit of like a boost that I needed, because you get to the top of that hill and suddenly there's a ton of people, which like you hadn't seen the entire race. The entire race, the only people I saw were the rabbits and like a cameraman. So coming to the top of that hill and seeing like tons of people yelling at me specifically, okay, we haven't seen Lindsay yet, like, and then moving on past that obstacle and hearing, okay, she's about like 30-40 seconds behind you, then I finally like knew what was happening. So that was huge, to just like have communication going on like where the right race was, where she was, and knowing I had to really push if I wanted to keep that lead.
How are you typically in these scenarios? Have you had enough experience in leading a race at this point to know how things typically play out, or how you typically feel when you're leading by, when they say 30 seconds, does that make you feel good or bad, or like, how do you handle that? I
mean, hearing like 30 seconds is not good when you know it's Lindsay behind you, because that's terrifying. And the rest of the race, I mean, I had already been running scared at that point, but then I was really scared because I feel confident. So here's the thing, is like I feel really, really confident in my obstacles for the most part, but the obstacles that I tend to struggle on the most, sadly, are like the easy obstacles. Like I always feel like I'm super slow on the cargo nets, and sometimes barbed wire. I think I've gotten a lot better at that recently, but the ones that aren't failable, but they're just like
Annoying.
Yeah, annoying, and
Slow
like
you
they take
down.
time. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, and Lindsay has done them a million times. She can do them in her sleep. So like going through that gauntlet, also knowing that the spear is still ahead of us and all of these just like annoying obstacles had me scared. I was pushing as hard as I could through everything. I was just like, yeah, barreling through it.
In retrospect, do you think that feeling scared, like that energy that is like inserted into you to help you push harder, was like a net positive? Or do you think that like trying to push harder on something like A-frame cargo, where like, you'll gain what, I don't know, a second based on effort, like, do you think it was a positive or negative having that feeling? Would you rather been relaxed? What do you think?
I mean, of course, had it been like a minute lead or more, I think I would have probably felt a lot better and not been quite as terrified.
I don't
But
know,
at
with
the
this
same
with the
time,
spear still there, it's still like
yeah,
crap,
that's
like still
true.
gotta go.
And Spear had burpees, not penalty loops, so like that
Mm-hmm.
was definitely stressing me out. But I think knowing that she was closing in also gave definitely like it lights a fire under you to be like, okay, I need to go. Like there is no messing around. There's no time to waste. Um, the only thing that I had to kind of be cautious on was Z-wall, because that was right after
Mm-hmm.
dunk wall. Your hands are wet. The obstacle is muddy. So it's not worth it to like be too risky on that and potentially fail like some people did. So that was the only thing I was like, okay, take this cautiously, get your heart rate down, and then just go. Like no time to waste.
And it seemed like you went through it pretty well, even if it was cautious. Even if you felt like it was cautious, it seemed like you got through it pretty quick. Either way,
Yeah.
that's just a good obstacle for you.
Yeah.
And then spear time, right?
Yeah.
So like, and you nailed the spear in Utah, which was huge, right? And that was a big part of that race. Like that really helped propel you to get yourself back into second place, was hitting that spear. So it worked in your favor that time, but that was the first time I hit it all year. So this is like you have positive momentum. What were you thinking going into it?
I was thinking I don't have time to waste. So just go throw it and hope for the best. Like it was the way they had it set up was like a little bit unique. They had the spears tied onto these like big cement like cylinder things.
I saw that they were like at your shins, only like shin high, right?
Yeah. So I like first went to the gate and like I was like, wait, where's the spear? And so I kind of fumbled for a minute, but the good thing is like I had gone on my warm up, picked out. I was like, I'm just gonna choose the first one. It looks fine. And so I never like questioned which one I was gonna go to. I just fumbled a little bit, like reeling it in. But then as soon as I had it ready, it was just like throw it. And luckily, I would also say in this race, especially coming off Utah, where the spear, I find that spear in that race to be like the most stressful spear throw
Utah?
of like all the races. Yeah, it's like set up super funky, like on the side of a hill. The footing is horrible. The spears are all like crooked, like the foams are crooked.
Yeah.
And I also think it's like farther or it's uphill or something. So it requires a lot more concentration at that venue. Here it was like really low key. It was like flat. The foam looked pretty good. It looked pretty close. So I wasn't as stressed about it. Just knowing that like I don't think it was gonna be as like I think it'd be more forgiving in this race, which it was, I think.
It seemed like a lot of people were hitting their spears, so it didn't seem it to be. And you hit it both days, and it looks like the way that you hit it was almost in the same spot both days. Looks like your release it was coming high.
Too high, yeah.
Yeah, have you been practicing going high, or is that just something that happened in this race because it was?
I don't know. I think so. A few days before I flew out, I went to this woman's obstacle gym, in California with Mark and Natalie, and we had been practicing on this. Like she has like a hay barrel, like the old school spear style, and it's super far. Like I would say it's probably twice the distance. And I think I had been practicing like really chucking it hard. And so this one to me, it was just like almost awkwardly close, the target. So I think I just threw it funny.
If you'd have launched it over.
Yeah, I think I was trying to like just send that spear like way further than it needed to go.
It worked. Just that might be the method.
Honestly, that's part of that. What I've learned trying to get my spear down though is that like the harder you throw it tends to be better. Like for some reason, I think chucking it isn't actually a horrible way of doing it.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I mean, you've been practicing a lot, so it's a matter. There's little nuances to things like that. And you can figure out little like release points and things like that. So maybe I wasn't throwing it hard enough. Just a little bit harder. Maybe it'll just cut through the air a little bit easier.
I mean, if you see the men throw it, like they are like really like throwing it like a dart with like full power. And then you watch the women, a lot of the women throw it and it looks like they're just like, like just goes in like so
Mark
got
almost crow hops. He like runs into it and he like really throws the thing. And it works. It works. Yeah, it's like less margin for error maybe. I don't know. Just keep throwing it hard. Yeah. So you get in the spear before Lindsay. You get out of the spear before Lindsay. It's helix again, which is like another last obstacle again. People racing through helix. So you guys get on almost at the same time, right? You get on it before her.
So it was really close. I think we got off of it at the exact same time. Like it was. Oh man.
You got off it ahead of her because the way it kind of wound.
You're right. Underneath. I'm thinking of Sunday. You're right. I did get off it ahead of her.
You were ahead of her a little bit because when you went through the like whatever the stables and like kind of zig and zagging through, you were ahead of her for a while there.
Yeah.
Until it kind of opened up into that straightaway. You mentioned to Magida that you thought that the finish was much closer.
Yes.
So were you still like, I'm winning this race. I'm off of this thing first. Like it's right there. And typically in Spartan races, the last obstacle is like 10 feet before the finish.
Right.
So I've never seen a finish like this.
I will never do this again where I just show up at a venue and like assume the finish is where the final obstacle is because I guess it's not always that way. It's
always that way. This is the first time I've never seen it like this.
Yeah, it was almost like a couple blind turns too, where like you come off helix, you make a really sharp 90-degree turn, and then you're like in the parking lot, and then like you make another turn into the like equestrian place, and so you don't even know where the finish is. Like it's like I was like, oh my God, I thought it was here. Like it could be like another mile. I'm like thinking in my head, like, is there more of this race that I just like forgot about? So then those like bad thoughts came into my head.
That you thought there was more obstacles and stuff, or like?
I thought I didn't know what to think. I was just like, I thought this race was over and now it's not. And that is like the worst place you can go mentally when like you're fully depleted and you think you're at the finish. Like,
yeah, there's no thinking.
Yeah.
Brain isn't working at that point.
No.
And then it's just that long straightaway. It seemed really long.
Really long. I would say it was like, probably at least 600, 800 meters or something like that. It felt like, I don't know.
Wow. That'd be
maybe not, but I
like that idea for a finish. I think it would lend itself to more compelling finishes. Like the way you and Lindsay were neck and neck and pulling into the finish was like, that's amazing. And being able to have like a literal kick as opposed to like A-frame cargo that we were talking about before. It's just like two people kind of fumbling their way over. Like you don't really know who's going faster until they come off of it. And then like they sprint for 10 meters and that's that. Like having it be like 200 meters or something where you can actually run and get after it in that last little bit and really empty the tank. I think it's a cool little wrinkle that they had.
I agree. Like now, I mean, had I known about it, I think it would have probably gone a lot differently. I think I just wasn't mentally prepared for that.
Right.
But I love it. Like I think more, at least at the big races, I think should be like that because we rarely get like a photo finish in OCR just because the way our courses typically are with like a dunk wall at the end or something. But I love it. Like I think it makes for a really exciting race, especially at a venue that's spectator friendly like this one. There were so many people at the end, and it was really fun. Especially, I think for those watching.
Yeah, it must have been amazing. I was watching like the ORM coverage of it, and like they couldn't figure out the camera work, and like they didn't have the finish.
Oh yes,
like in real time. I was like, oh my god, what's happening? I had to check Athlinks to see what happened to the winner of the race. It took so long.
Yeah, you hear them like commenting, and they're like, wait, who won? Who won the race?
Could you tell us who won? Does anyone know who won? I was like, Jesus. I was like, I'm going back to bed. So, but yeah, like you get that finish and like you definitely look like you spent everything. Yeah. Is your first and like getting second place again? Last time Utah, it was like this holy shit kind of moment. It was like, wow, I can't believe this is like, not that you shouldn't have been there, but like that it actually happened. Something that hasn't happened before. This time again, finishing second, but in a much different race. Did it feel different, or did it kind of feel the same in like the way you responded after the race, or how did you feel like right when it was done?
It wasn't the same feeling. It was like, I think it was almost like a delayed reaction. Like later on in the day, I felt like this like disbelief of what had just happened. But in the moment, I was so spent and I had put everything out there that like I just didn't have the energy to like have an emotion. I just wanted to be done. I was like, I couldn't like, it's disappointing now looking back on it and like thinking in my head, was there like maybe a little bit more I could have given in that finish? Like I feel like there's always a little bit more, and so it's annoying to think about that, but at the same time in that moment when I crossed that finish line, I was just so happy with myself because I think I had truly laid it all out there, and I think that showed in like how can you be mad at yourself if you give that kind of effort? Like I gave everything I could on that day, and like it earned me a second place behind Lindsay by 5 seconds. Like, can I really be mad about it? Like it's
right.
I think that would be a little bit harsh. So
and in retrospect, it's eeasy to think that you could summon a feeling when you're not feeling that feeling. Like it's just not realistic, right? I've done it a million times, right? It's like, oh, if I was there, like do that again, I would just push a little bit harder. But it's like when you're in it, you like, it doesn't quite work that way. You can't just muster it with all those like warning signals and all the fatigue and everything barreling down you. But yeah, that makes sense that the feeling would have been different. And then like the sense of pride maybe coming through later on. Because even though the outcome was the same, like the accomplishment seemed a little bit different. Yeah.
And yeah, it was also just different in the fact that this entire race, I mean, for most of the back half of that race, I was leading and like I was feeling pretty good. Like I think the first couple miles of the race were rough. I was very like panicked, and it took me a while to like get in the groove because of just the terrain and the wet obstacles and like feeling like we were going way too fast. But then once I kind of got in the rhythm of everything, it felt like I was in control of that race. So finishing where I did, it wasn't as shocking to me. Like Utah, I was just in total disbelief that I even finished the race. I thought it was going to go down at some point that day. So this one, it wasn't as shocking to me, but it was, I guess, in how it ended, it was pretty shocking. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. The circumstances were certainly different. And, but yeah, it just seems to be like where you belong right now. Like in the entire race was kind of like that, right? It didn't necessarily like you asserted yourself early, and like you put yourself in the best place possible and like where you thought you should be. And that's where you did and ultimately end up belonging. So freaking awesome. It was so cool. Thanks. It was really fun to watch. Yeah. I was so pumped for it. So what are you thinking next?
I'm going to West Virginia now.
It's happening?
It's happening. Yeah.
What was the, like, what do you think?
It's funny, like going into this past weekend, like I had the thought of, oh, if I get a podium or like even top 5, I think I was going to be pretty happy with. And I thought, okay, if I do well in this race, then I'll probably skip West Virginia, and just count that out for the series. And then hopefully Big Bear will go well. And I can also drop Jacksonville where I was 6th. But now it's funny because like I almost outperformed what I thought I would. And now I'm thinking I have to go to West Virginia because I don't know. I feel like at this point I want to just see how well I can do, and especially like in the points because there's like a little bit of an opportunity for me to maybe like get 1st or 2nd in the series. And so I feel like it'd be, I might regret not at least going for it.
And it's going to be a similar race, right? Like the course is going to be similar, maybe with more climbs and a little bit longer, which might suit you better even. And like, so it has to be like, got to give you confidence coming out of Asheville for something like West Virginia. And you're right, like playing that points game, you're in a great spot. But it's funny, like now looking back, like that Jacksonville felt like that race was good.
Yeah,
that race was a good race. Now you're like, ugh, I just got to drop that race now. But also like you can displace other people, right? Like if you go and like get people down even further, you just add another point count into it, like by asserting yourself into there, even if like you end up dropping, even if you go to West Virginia and you do better in Big Bear than you do West Virginia, and like West Virginia doesn't even count, right?
Right.
You could still potentially displace someone else below you. And those top 4 spots are really heavily weighted, right? So you got to keep people out of those top 4 that aren't you.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's out of my control, but I can just do what I can and hope to do well.
Yeah. And no reason why you wouldn't. Cool. Well, again, awesome job. Really excited for you. Got
Thanks.
a couple of weeks to chill and recover and get ready for that West Virginia.
Yeah.
Cool.
Let's do it.
So make sure to link to your socials and all that, but that'll be it for us.
All right. Thanks, Rich.